Something is happening to us because a genetic change wouldn't happen that fast. They've never studied these things. Then how is it ethical to lie to a woman and tell her it's safe when we don't have studies? I really struggle with that.
Today we are speaking with Dr. Angela Griffiths, a functional medicine practitioner and chiropractor with over 30 years of experience who specializes in female health. Good afternoon, Dr. Griffiths.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. So last week, the White House, along with the CDC, FDA, HHS, the National Institute of Health, pretty much everyone, came up with a huge press conference announcing the links between autism and Tylenol. And besides that, they also touched on some other very sensitive subjects, such as excessive childhood vaccine schedule and so on. So before we start today, I just would like to mention some statistics that I think everyone needs to hear. It doesn't matter if you're a parent or not. This is something I think we all should start paying attention to. Statistically, there was one child per 20,000 who had autism. Right now, it's 1 in 31 or even 1 in 12, according to some reports from California.
Yeah.
So it's really 400% increase. And President Trump actually went as far as saying that this is artificially induced, which I think is somewhat logical conclusion just based on the surge, right? 400%, that's a lot. So would you agree with this statement? And what are the actual reasons for such a sharp increase, in your opinion?
So the announcement that President Trump came out with was more of his excitement of wanting to talk about research that was just published in August. I think that RFK Jr. recognizes that it's a multi-faceted issue. There's many things that contribute to the potential of autism. And the more important thing is it's external to ourselves. Something is happening to us because a genetic change wouldn't happen that fast, right? A genetic change happens over hundreds of years, not over 20 or 30 years. So a 400% increase is not logical to say it's genetic. I believe it is something that's being exposed to us that is changing our epigenetic expression, which is very different than saying it's genetic. I think you know the difference, but just to share with your audience, we're born with genes that they work if we don't have literally a genetic disease that's usually diagnosed in the first couple of years. Our genes are functioning. And then thereafter, the food sources that we're exposed to, chemicals, toxins, vitamins or lack thereof, vaccines, medications, all can affect how our genes express. So we're having problems in that area. Absolutely.
Thank you. And actually, multiple studies do confirm right now that there is a potential link between Tylenol and autism. And the company that produces Tylenol actually acknowledged the risks back in 2018, 7 years ago, although privately. And this email chain became publicly known just now. So after the White House press conference last week, there are some really alarming reports of some pregnant women who overdose on Tylenol just to quote unquote stick it to Trump or prove Trump wrong. And they really do risk the life of the baby, right?
They hate their president more than they love their pregnancy and their baby.
Yes, yes. This is very alarming. And with so much information coming to us from all different angles, and understandably, some people are just plainly confused who to believe, who to trust, how does it work? So can you explain in simple terms so that everyone understands it? What's the actual link between autism and Tylenol?
Absolutely. And in this case, the studies that were being referred to are mothers consuming Tylenol, usually at higher doses or longer periods of time during pregnancy. More studies will be coming out about what happens when Tylenol is given to a baby before or after a vaccine is received, which is a whole nother component. So specific to these studies with mothers in pregnancy, Tylenol has to go through our different phases of detoxification. And one of the most critical pieces of that is at the end of going through detoxification, the body has to use something that we make in our own bodies called glutathione. It's the body's master antioxidant. And we use that to help reduce down the components of the medicines, but we also have to use it to get the residual or the metabolites out of our body. That's glutathione. And Tylenol specifically shuts down glutathione production. So it stops our body from being able to make more. So let's say you took your first dose and whatever available glutathione helps break it down so those metabolites can get out of the body. But if you took another dose or you took a higher dose than you had available glutathione, your body can't break it down. And that literally then starts to cause issues with your body in oxidative stress and other things that can affect the brain and inflammation in the brain. So it's the available amount of glutathione and the effect that Tylenol has on glutathione that is the biggest impact and issue in the body.
Is it just Tylenol, or there are some other medications that cause similar effect?
Great question. And I did put something out on X or Twitter about this. And there are so many other medications that also affect glutathione. Obviously, historically, OBGYNs used to tell pregnant mamas not to take any medication. There were no vaccines given to mothers. Somewhere along the line that changed. And now moms are being heavily encouraged to take certain vaccines during pregnancy, and they're being advised to use medications. And in none of these is there safety studies, period. There are no safety studies for any of that. So why did the logic change? Why is the recommendation being made? That's the bigger question. But secondly, there's a resource that people can use, and it's available online now, called Drug Muggers. And that was created by Susie Cohen. She is a pharmacist. She wrote a book, I want to say at least a decade ago, maybe more like 15 years ago, called Drug Muggers. And it's amazing. I look at it when a patient is on any medication to find out what it reduces, what nutrients it reduces in the body, because every medication stands to have an impact on different nutrients in your body. That's why it's called drug muggers, because it's mugging or stealing your body of essential nutrients, right? And so you can take any medication and put it into the search bar and search what nutrients in your body it depletes. So
Yes, this is a great suggestion. And just for our viewers, I understand this is a very complex and broad subject, but just briefly, can you name maybe a couple of medications that potentially have the same effect?
Okay, so anything that's considered an acid blocker, that can include Tagamet, Nexium, Pepcid, Complete, Prevacid, 24, Axid, Prilosec, OTC, Protonox, Acifex, and Zantac. Anything that's considered an analgesic, which Tylenol falls in. And remember, it's acetaminophen in Tylenol, and acetaminophen is also in many other analgesics. So it's acetaminophen that is the issue, not the brand name Tylenol, right?
Right.
And in the UK, it's called paracetamol.
In Europe, in general, yeah, it's
Yeah.
paracetamol.
Yeah. So antacids can affect the body, including Tums. I've had so many moms tell me, oh, I was on Tums, and I get it. Heartburn can be nasty during pregnancy. I had it as well. And my German midwife told me, use chew papaya enzymes and drink just like seltzer water, just plain carbonated water, and it helps to reduce the acid reflux and the indigestion. I absolutely had that as well. Antivirals can also cause the issue, as well as alcohol and other things, which is, of course, why they tell us not to drink alcohol during pregnancy either. And last I checked, that hasn't changed.
Yes, yes. This is very important information for everyone. Thank you for bringing that up. So you also touched on some other very interesting subject, and I actually have a question about it as well. So there are some significant changes that have been made to maternal and pregnancy care within the past few decades. Could you maybe outline these changes and why do you think that they were made?
Good question. So, one of the biggest ones was the recommendation to take folic acid for pregnant mothers. And literally, it's because of folate deficiencies in a pregnant mom can lead to neural tube defects, right? Literally, spina bifida or other neural tube defects. And they wanted to stop that. So, the government, in their infinite wisdom, said, let's supplement moms with folic acid during pregnancy, okay? And they also fortified the food supply within the same couple year period. This was in the late 80s or early 90s that all of that started. But here's the problem. Folic acid is a synthetic nutrient made, and when they looked at the chemical structure, they said, okay, this is the same as folate. But the human body sees it differently. Our body has to metabolize that synthetic folic acid to get it to a form that's recognizable in our body. In other words, folic acid is never naturally occurring in the human body. We have forms of dihydrofolate, methylfolate, folinic acid, right? These are forms that our body converts and recognizes from food. Food-based folate is going to come from your asparagus, broccoli, green leafy vegetables, and lentils, right? So we can eat our folate, and what they found was women weren't eating enough, which is why they added more in, but they added the wrong form. And this folic acid form becomes problematic for many women, not necessarily all, but for many women, because we have a specific enzyme, right? Call it a gene or an enzyme, that folic acid, or even folate, but the folic acid has to get through, and it inhibits that enzyme, right? The unmetabolized folic acid inhibits that enzyme, and then it prevents folate, even from food, getting into the appropriate systems in the body to protect your mood, your calmness, your ability to sleep, your ability to reduce oxidative stress in your body. Versus the other side is methylation, which is how we make the body of the baby, which is how we literally create DNA, heal DNA, create cell tissue. So the very thing that they're wanting to protect or prevent is actually causing more problems long-term with the babies. And one of the things that I contend is it's this exposure to the folic acid from the mom to the baby that is playing a role in causing the folate receptor antibodies in the babies that then go on to develop autism. I don't know that the folic acid alone does it. I think it's a combination of things, but a trigger is often the vaccines, because a vaccine forces your body to create an immune response, right? It forces your immune system to respond. And part of that is creating inflammation in the body to get the immune system to respond. And if you remember the one pathway I said that's the immune response. And the other side is repairing DNA. So when neither of those are able to work appropriately because we can't get the folate in because now we have antibodies against the folate receptors, babies who have autism all are showing low folate in the brain. So it's not able to get there. And the one solution that they quickly mentioned was, it's called leucovorin, which is a prescription for folinic acid, which is one of the two that I said is natural, one of the three forms that's natural in the human body, folinic acid, but it's also available naturally. You don't have to get it through a prescription. And once you're able to get the folinic acid in and moving, it's going to affect many other enzymes and need other nutrients in the body. So we have to be careful that we're not just super applying one nutrient, because we're going to cause other problems, and the baby may start to positively respond and then actually regress because they're missing the other nutrients. Sorry, I hope I didn't go too fast into that.
No. This is very important. I think that the topic of folic acid actually is so much undercovered.
Yeah.
Because doctors left and right just continue advising pregnant women, and even someone who tries to conceive to start taking these prenatal vitamins with folic acid, and everyone does it just without the full understanding, if it's actually good for them.
Well,
So,
to be clear on that, again, this isn't being disrespectful, this is being factual. Most medical doctors, even OBGYNs, don't receive more than a couple hours of nutrition education. They're trusting pharmaceutical representatives or the FDA or the CDC to give them the parameters that they practice under. So if they're told mothers need folic acid, that's what they're told. They don't necessarily know nutrition and nutritional biochemistry to know what happens to that folic acid in the blocking. And so I don't fault them. I fault the field as a whole for not staying accurate and current with how different nutrients affect the human body. And obviously I mentioned folic acid because they're giving us the wrong form of the nutrient we need. But the other thing that's deficient in most American women is choline. 92+% of American women are depleted in choline at the time of conception. And literally choline is needed to develop the baby's brain, spinal cord, and nervous system. So if we're missing choline, we're getting the wrong form of folate. Like, how are we supposed to have healthy babies, right? We're not getting the right advice.
Yes, this is a very, very good question. My follow-up question, you mentioned that there are natural sources in food, obviously. So it's broccoli, asparagus. I feel like it's a concern of a lot of people right now that pretty much everyone agrees we don't have as many vitamins in our food as we used to, right? So would you say that just consuming simply foods rich in folate would be enough for a pregnant woman, or should she go for supplementation?
For a pregnant woman, she's likely going to need more than she can get from her diet. For regular folks, if you're eating a broad diversity of food and not eating fortified foods, because those fortified foods have the synthetic versions that can block the same enzymes, right? If you're eating clean, whole foods, you can get enough from your diet, assuming that you're not already nutrient depleted. I know that's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but if you're starting depleted, you need to catch up, but then you can maintain from your normal diet. But for a pregnant mom, again, many are starting out already depleted. But even if you eat a healthy diet, the need that the baby has is going to take from your body, period. The baby will come first, and it will take from your body, leaving many moms depleted and unhealthy after their pregnancy. And then many moms rush into another pregnancy, and the next one may not have what it needs at all because the mom's already been depleted, right?
Yes.
So I always talk to moms about really getting their own health under control before they get pregnant so that they have enough to give the baby, getting on the right type of supplements. I know that there are many out there that are now prenatal vitamins that are starting to use the active forms of folate. Again, that's methylfolate or folinic acid. And it's also important that they have the active forms of the B12, right? Because a lot of the over-the-counter supplements and things are going to include cyanocobalamin, which again, synthetic, not natural, never found in the human body, very hard for the body to metabolize. The forms that are better in the human body and found there naturally are methylcobalamin, adenosylcobalamin, or hydroxycobalamin. But also a good prenatal is also going to contain some choline in it, right? Or mamas can supplement with some additional choline or phosphatidylcholine that thereafter can metabolize into acetylcholine, the other forms.
Obviously, folic acid and the misconception about it is very, very important. Can you bring up something else that's typically misunderstood at this point?
Well, I did mention the other concern that I have is the amount of vaccines that are now offered to pregnant moms, because you have to remember our bodies are beautifully and innately made, right? They have their own intelligence. And even if a mom enters a pregnancy with an autoimmune disease, which I don't recommend, we try to get them in control before. But even if a mom enters a pregnancy with an autoimmune disease, what the body will often do is put that autoimmune disease in remission for the pregnancy so that her body doesn't attack the foreign tissue from the baby as if it were an autoimmune disease and kill it. There is a condition where that happens. So the body's trying to prevent that from happening. And then we have this beautiful baby, the baby's born, and then the mom sometimes can all of a sudden start having an autoimmune disease again after the pregnancy as the immune system's trying to get back under control with the changing hormone levels. Okay. Now, the problem during the pregnancy is if you try to force the mom's immune system with a vaccine, you can push her back into an autoimmune issue and have the body attacking the baby. There's other things that can also happen to the mom's immune system during that process that can be very harmful to the baby. They've never studied these things. So for the fact that they came up with at least 2, if not 3 vaccines now that they advise moms take, I know RSV, I believe MMR, and now COVID, that they're offering moms. It's been at least 28 years since I've gone through that, so I'm not sure what they're advising at the moment. But none of them have been safety tested to understand what happens, not just to the mom's baby, to the mom's body during the pregnancy, but also to the baby and thereafter, right? Again, if the mom's body is pushed into an autoimmune disease as a reaction to the vaccine during the pregnancy, how is it going to affect the baby? And how is it going to affect her body after the pregnancy? There's 10 or 15 years of research on individuals that need to be done before we can say that there's any amount of potential safety, let alone benefit. I'm just talking about the safety risk. So that's something that's very new in the last decade or so, maybe 15 years at the most.
Yes. I would even add that I think most people don't realize it, but generally studies are not done on pregnant women.
Correct.
Generally. It just doesn't happen. And to say that something is safe for a pregnant woman without actually studying it, that raises another set of, I think, ethical questions.
Well, and that's the point, is they'll say it's unethical to do studies on a pregnant woman.
Yes.
Then how is it ethical to lie to a woman and tell her it's safe?
Correct.
When we don't have studies? I really struggle with that.
Live Feed is an independent media platform. Our only mission is to bring truthful and independent reporting. If you'd like to support our work, join our channel as a member and be the first to watch all new videos as soon as they come out. Thank you for supporting independent journalism. People like you make it all possible.
Speaking about studies, and actually this is also a follow-up question about Tylenol. So doctors still, not all of them, but official bodies of maternal care and OBGYN just came out and said that Tylenol is still safe and effective in managing pain and fever in pregnant women. And I'm not sure what were the reasons they were driven by, but I think we all have our guesses. My next question is very practical. So let's say fever, right? There are studies that suggest that rushing to bring down fever might actually be detrimental to the body because fever is the body's natural immune response and it helps to heal disease quickly. Right? So when it comes to pregnant women, does it still apply? Like, how would pregnant women manage fear,
right,
especially without Tylenol?
So here's the point that is so ironic that it makes me mad. They say that a pregnant woman should fear a fever, but it's safe to get a vaccine, which may itself induce
high fever.
Yeah. Because the body has to force an immune response. The best thing for a pregnant mom is to be nurtured and protected and not get sick during pregnancy. Does it happen? Absolutely. I actually know in my practice 5 women who went through a COVID infection during pregnancy. And they were fine. They didn't take any medication. They literally were, using healthy food and supplements that are known to be safe during pregnancy to help manage their body and their symptoms, but they didn't try to reduce the fever using Tylenol, which we know can be problematic. So What's worse, taking a medication that's shown in research to be problematic, or letting your body work through it and support your body in working through that fever? There's things that we can do, like lukewarm baths and things, to help our body during a fever. You can literally use, like ice pads and things on the bottoms of your feet gently to help release some of the heat. There's old school things that we can do that women have done for hundreds of years. Tylenol hasn't been around for hundreds of years. What did we do before it came around?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think many things. And speaking of that, what natural remedies would you recommend to a woman who is pregnant and has fever?
Honestly, just really taking care of yourself. When a woman is pregnant, we need to accept the fact that nurturing that, growing baby is the most important responsibility that we have. Pulling back on daily responsibilities, eating healthy foods that are naturally high in vitamin C and the green leafy vegetables and things. Again, if you have a fever, adjusting your body accordingly, taking off clothes, managing your temperature at home. And sometimes keeping your body at a low grade fever is healthy. So, wrapping yourself up in your, robes and things, or sweatshirts, to keep yourself warm, to allow it to stay at a low burning, like a 99, rather than going up. You don't want to let it get up over 103. You just don't. So the best thing you can do is to not make it go there, is to really help your body burn it out at lower levels.
So let's say if it happens that it actually goes over 103, what's then?
Good questions. Honestly, at that point in time, I would say ER, but they're going to try to give you Tylenol. Like, they don't have natural remedies to help bring fevers down. At that stage in the game, it would be, in my humble opinion, more about monitoring the baby to make sure that the baby isn't becoming into stress. Your body may still be fighting it just fine. But again, there's two on board now. So I would want to say having someone external to yourself helping monitor to make sure that the baby's not getting into stress.
Yeah, this is a very good suggestion. Obviously, there's so much information right now, and I think it's really great that some of these questions, we at least started asking them publicly on the top government level. I think that never happened before.
Exactly.
So this is good. And with all of this information, it might be quite challenging, if not to say overwhelming, to be a pregnant woman in the US, right? Yeah. So what would be your top 3 recommendations how a woman can stay healthy during pregnancy, and how her baby can be healthy as well?
I would say, honest to goodness, looking at old school pregnancy books, old school, right? 30, 40-year-old pregnancy books. We didn't used to rely on external medical things to make our pregnancies work. There are topical solutions for pains and things. Everybody's like, well, what do I do for pain? Again, pull back, right? Eat anti-inflammatory. So many pregnant women now aren't thinking about getting their own bodies clean and healthy before they go into a pregnancy, so their body goes into distress, and they're used to turning to a pill for their symptom rather than learning how to eat clean, getting rid of all those symptoms, getting rid of all the inflammation before they go there. So sometimes it means pre-preparing your body and learning how to listen to your body and do what's right. Take a nap in the middle of the day if you have to, right? Reduce the stress in your life, because stress creates inflammation, which can create pain, which can reduce your ability to digest the food that you're eating so that you can't get the nutrients from it, right? And we want more than anything to help our body be able to do it as much as possible on its own, rather than needing external support. Using yoga or other breathing techniques to learn how to bring your body into a parasympathetic mode and out of that fight or flight stress mode, right? We need to help our body get into a rest, digest, and repair mode, because while you're building a baby, your body is trying to be in that repair mode 24/7, whereas many of us live a good 14 hours of our day in a stress mode, which is going to be hard for the baby to be able to grow appropriately, which is going to cause more tear down on the woman's body, right? So really, again, getting our own head in order before we go there and seek for internal solutions and healthy things that we put into our body rather than looking for external supports. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you.
If you'd like to support our work, join our channel as a member and be the first to watch all new videos as soon as they come out.
And actually, while you were talking about it, I just remembered one more question that I really wanted to ask. There is, I would say, a very complex childhood vaccine schedule. The last time I counted, within the first year of life, I believe it's over 20, maybe even more. If we just go by the by the quote unquote book and the regular schedule, right? So I think that many parents are struggling with two contradicting issues at this point. So on the one hand, we now know, and there are studies, that there is link between, autism and vaccines. And on the other hand, many parents are just concerned if they don't have their child to take the vaccine, what if the child, falls sick and it will be their fault. So what advice would you give to those parents? And in your opinion, are there still any vaccines that would be beneficial rather than not, or it's just not safe at all for the fragile little baby?
Huge question. Very, very deep question. There's a book that I would encourage that every expectant or mother who plans to one day have a baby, and dad, you both need to be in agreement on this issue. There's a book called Turtles All the Way Down, Vaccine, Science, and Myth. It is critical to read. In my 34 years of studying this particular topic, I find that to be the most comprehensive and the most referenced source. When you look at the book that's, I want to say like 300 pages, there's a code that you can scan to get a PDF of the references, which is another 300 pages, right? So the studies have been done and they lay out the case. There are more questions than answers. There is not one vaccine on the current childhood schedule that has been safety tested using a placebo-controlled study. Period. Not one. We talked about in pregnancy, there's no safety. Well, even in the childhood vaccines, there is not one that has been placebo-controlled safety studied. That being said, you just mentioned the complete schedule. Oftentimes at a visit, a baby is expected to get up to 3 or 4 vaccines at the same time. Some of those may be multiple strains. So let's say you're getting 3, 4, 5, or even 6 pathogens at the same visit. That's never been studied for safety either, let alone one of them. But the combination of them has never been studied for safety. I don't know. How do you think your body would react if you got 6 pathogens, 6 diseases applied to your body at the same time? Our immune system is not designed to respond to that many antigens or pathogens at the same time. It just isn't. So in my humble opinion, there's nothing about the schedule that is either natural or healthy for children. Does more research need to be done? Heck yeah, it does. Absolutely it does. To any parent who fears a child getting sick, there's another parent who had a child vaccinated and the child reacted. You can't take that back. There's fears on both sides. And my frustration is there's no accurate understanding of what is a child's risk, either if they were to get sick, right? How serious is this one? Like chicken pox, for God's sakes. Why did we have to come up with a chicken pox vaccine? Every child got through it, recovered from it, and now has lifelong immunity and prevention against different cancers. They replace that with now everybody's getting a chickenpox vaccine. Oh, guess what? It doesn't last for life. When's it going to end? We don't know. It's different in every person. And oh, by the way, now you don't have protections from those cancers. right? Which one is better? In the case of chickenpox, I still say it's better to get it as a child because you can have more serious and significant side effects if you get it as an adult. It would be much better for a population to let children have childhood diseases when the body is much more capable, the immune system is stronger, and allow them to get and recover from those diseases and develop other immunity in the process. Vaccines don't have lifelong immunity, and we don't know when they're going to give up. We don't know when it's going to stop. So does that mean we just have to keep getting poked for the rest of our lives? And how healthy is that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Even if we don't go into details of how the body reacts, everyone knows that there will be immune response generated by this, and immune response can vary so much in different people, right? For someone, it could be fever and like light headache or
1000%.
tiredness. For other people, it could be just devastating.
Autoimmune inflammatory diseases of the brain, yes, from one vaccine. Yes, those two separate things are both possible. I just posted something maybe 48 hours ago on X about how the way our body responds to just an immune response, not even a vaccine, just an immune response, is so very different based on our genes. And based on the disease. My body may actually have a benefit or have beneficial genes that protect me against one disease, where yours may have genes that protect you better from a different disease. And we both may have to get through the other diseases. One of us may struggle more with one than the other. Do you see what I'm saying? Like our bodies just react differently, period. And until or unless they can tell us why some bodies react a certain way, how can a parent make a fully informed decision? I had a child who reacted 34 years ago to a vaccine. One vaccine, only one ever. And it was given to her behind my back. And she developed febrile seizures. She's now 34 years old and has had to live with learning disabilities and things for all of her life. Does she wish that her parent would take back that decision to allow her to get that vaccine? Of course she does. And I've done everything that I can help her do to heal to my best ability. She's very high functioning, but it still had a very, very high toll on her. So therefore, I did not choose to vaccinate her brothers with the same vaccine because I knew what it did to her. And her pediatrician told me, if you have more children, you do not want to get this vaccine. Clearly, with your genetics, it didn't work. It reacted poorly. So they didn't go through that. How much different would it have been for me as a mother to know if you have X, Y, or Z genes, or if this is your family background or whatever, your child should not get this vaccine, and it could have spared my daughter.
Yes.
34 years ago, I wish they had that research. And every year since then, I've watched, and they've never done that research.
Yeah.
Hoping that Bobby Kennedy is going to help finally do that research.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm so sorry to hear about this. And I'll just add one thing. I think not a lot of people also realize it, but in case of a vaccine injury, there is not much a person can do in terms of compensation, right? Because no one in the US can sue the manufacturer of the vaccine.
I wouldn't say no one, but it's very tough.
Yes.
There is a system called the VAERS, or the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, and there is within that mechanism, there's a way that essentially you can sue the government. In the US, since the 1986 Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, you cannot hold the manufacturer responsible for harm from their product if it's on the vaccine schedule, right? If it's on that childhood schedule, you can't hold the manufacturer responsible. You have to sue the government, and you have to prove that that vaccine harmed your child.
Yeah. So essentially, people cannot sue the manufacturer of the vaccine, but they can sue the government. And let's just say good luck with that.
It is hard. It's long. It's expensive, and there have been a few people who've won, but at what detriment to their family? Like that phase in my game. A, I was a young mom. B, I just poured into my child to help her heal. And, you know, she watched her peers, her same age peers that were severely handicapped. And she would say, Mom, I know I have issues, but I'm thankful that I don't have that many issues. And now she is a special aid, what is it called? A para educator. And she supports kids with needs in public schools in a local school district. So she's continued in helping those other kids get through their learning disabilities and whatnot as well.
This is so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story as well. I know we covered a lot just besides Tylenol, because it's not only about Tylenol.
Exactly.
Is there anything else that you feel that is really important for people to know?
Again, especially for, you know, pregnant moms, because that's kind of how we originally started the conversation. Again, I'm just going to say it again. It's super, super, super important that moms really focus on improving their own health before they take on the responsibility of developing another healthy human, right? Reducing inflammation in the body, putting any existing autoimmunity into remission, because autoimmunity creates inflammation, right? Measuring and correcting any nutrient deficiencies. We mentioned one or two. Choline is hard to measure, but folate is measurable through blood labs. Doing some detoxes in order to reduce your total body burden of toxins and things that will otherwise be passed on to the baby. Because as moms, when we nurse our babies, which is the most healthy way to feed a baby, but we store our toxins in our fat cells. So anything we've been exposed to throughout our life that we weren't able to get out immediately, our body stored them into our fat or in our bones. And so when we break down our fat to feed the baby, those toxins can be released and they can be fed to the baby. So if mom is able to do some healthy detoxes prior to conception, you can help get your body clean so that you're not passing on those things. I mentioned choline. I mentioned folate versus folinic acid in pregnancy. Other things to consider that are critical are B12. Again, folate doesn't work without B12 in those pathways that we talked about. When folate is converted into methylfolate, it has to work with B12 in order to make the methylation pathway for DNA production and repair to work. And if a mom is vegetarian or vegan, she may have lower body stores of B12 and she may need some additional B12. That's also something that can be tested through blood labs. There's two forms. One is called B12, the other is called methylmalonic acid. Okay. And again, if a mom has been in an autoimmune condition, her body has had autoimmune inflammation, she may have developed parietal cell antibodies or intrinsic factor antibodies, which can cause pernicious anemia, where her body stops absorbing B12. So super important that the B12 is measured and assessed. And the other one is a little more complicated, but it's tetrahydrobiopterin or BH4. We don't currently have labs to measure it, and it is harder to correct, which is why I focused so heavily on these other steps. Getting the inflammation under control, getting the choline, the methylfolate, and the B12 in order, because again, they make the tetrahydrobiopterin. So if you fix all those steps, your body can handle it. You don't have to per se worry about it. Some of our bodies have a harder time making BH4, so we have to stay super clean. But again, BH4 is a cofactor for nitric oxide, and it's how we move oxygen around our body, and it's important in order to specifically be able to get blood flow to the placenta. So having low BH4 can lead to, call it uncoupling of the nitric oxide, which creates more inflammation in the body. It becomes like an inflammation spiral, and it can lead to preeclampsia or intrauterine growth restriction, right? Small baby growth. because the mom's body doesn't have enough BH4 to send the blood supply and things to the baby. So those are things that we can avoid by, like I said, taking care of the other things and getting mom healthy.
Would you say that it's also useful to avoid fortified foods that are fortified with folic acid? And I believe some people know what those fortified foods are, but for those who don't, can you just, give some bullet points?
So in the US, most breads, many grains, crackers, rices, you have to read the label. And if it says fortified at all, it means that synthetic vitamins have been added back into the food. And if it's added into the food that way, it's usually that folic acid that we talked about. But it can also be found in energy drinks, which I hope no pregnant women are drinking anyway. Could be added to some juices and things. Just start reading labels. And anytime it says fortified, you need to think folic acid. And anytime you read like a vitamin bottle or something and it says folate, if it just says folate, you can almost expect that it's from folic acid, right? Unless it says folate, parentheses, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate or methylfolate or folinic acid or calcium folinate. Folinic acid is also called calcium folinate. If it doesn't have any of those names that are good, you have to assume that it's the folic acid, because I've caught many companies that just write folate on their product. And if it's not greens or lentils and it says folate on the bottle, you know they've had to somehow get it into that bottle. And it's almost akin to asking a woman, would you go out and forage dead leaves for your meal? No? Well, then why would you want to eat that synthetic vitamin? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like our body's like, oh, no. So,
right.
Sorry, silly example.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and thank you so much for sharing so much valuable information. I hope that for those who have not heard about it before, this interview would come exactly at the right time. And thank you so much for spreading this information. If people want to know more about the work that you do, how can they find you or reach out to you?
Absolutely. So on X, I try to post quite a few things there. I haven't really started another place for it yet. But on X, my profile is Dr. Angela, the number 4, Dr. Angela 4 Health. And if you want to contact me directly, you can go to workwith.angelagriffiths with an S, dc.com. Workwith.angelagriffithsdc.com.
Thank you, Dr. Angela.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.